So I'm even more impressed than after hearing that, especially knowing that you guys are both 2-1 already. That said, you definitely have a lot to work on, but the reason I like doing oral critiques at this point in the tournament is because it gives you a chance to work on it for the rest of the tournament, right? So, off the top of my head, a few of the things that both of you need to definitely emphasize and really practice a lot, even practice on your own. Like, I would definitely suggest both of you, after we leave this room, finding somewhere by yourself and just giving your AR, one AR, and your either one NR, the rebuttal part, or your two NR, just by yourself, doing it over. Like, just basically what you said in this round, but doing it clearer, and adding more to it. But most importantly, when you extend something, extend it with claim, warrant, and impact it back to the standard, man. Nothing gets on my nerves more and like makes me just hurt for you guys, because it's like I'm watching you about to seriously cross the finish line, and then you just, if you gave me 4 more words, I could sign the ballot in your favor, but you just don't do it. And what I'm talking about is when you make extensions, clear-cut extensions, like a lot of the arguments you make about oligarchy, like you say extend them across the flow, and you don't impact them back to the standards. And like, yeah, I can do that work for you. Like, I don't have that big a problem. I don't think it's that much intervening in some cases, but honestly, you could have told me just pull the trigger right now. She drops that my internal warrants that democracy leads to oligarchy because all complex organizations do, and there's no moral obligation to create oligarchy because all these bad things happen. That impacts back to utilitarianism because we're not getting the greatest good to the greatest number of people, and it impacts back to governmental legitimacy because oligarchies aren't legitimate, right? So you win the ball game at that point, but you just don't give me those additional few words that allow you to do that. And you do something similar, okay? So let's go down the flow now a little bit and talk about specific arguments, all right? So first of all, with Caitlin, I really do. I like your case. I think it's a pretty, there's nothing like crazy strategic, and that's good for districts. That's good for nationals. Like, you don't need to be doing anything crazy off the wall, confusing. So it's pretty straightforward. I think you do a pretty good job. I think some of it you probably should add more carded evidence. Like, I'm not somebody who will deny arguments just because you don't have an author or citation. Like, if you give me the warrants that are good enough, by all means. I mean, you might be just as smart as Eric Johnson, the professor of political science from Auburn, but unless you're giving me those warrants, then I really would like to see more carded evidence. Specifically in your case, you do a better job of it. Now, sometimes you probably give me too much, honestly, because some of the arguments you waste time giving me a carded argument with, you probably could have made yourself. But anyway, that said, we get into the negative case, okay? And standards are pretty similar, although you do maybe make a little things, shake up things a little with governmental legitimacy. I don't know if you really have addressed governmental legitimacy as effectively as you can. I think that might be an argument you hear later on. So if I were you again after the round, I would think about some more responses to put up against it as a block, because I'm still sort of confused as to how that all worked out. But now let's get to theory, okay? So like you, and this is not anything against you, because when I was your age, I didn't know what a T-shell was at all. In fact, in one round, I misdefined the T-shell, like it embarrassed myself in front of like 20 people. So I didn't know what it was until I started getting beaten really bad on the national circuit by people who knew a lot about policy, debate, theory, and stuff. So I'm not saying you got beat really bad because you didn't, but I can tell that you aren't as comfortable with theory arguments and with policy-esque arguments. Now, I did tell him at the beginning of the round, I did say I'm open to those types of arguments. I did it with sort of mixed emotions because, indeed, this is districts, this is nationals. If you probably run theory nationals to, moms in the back that are judging the round, they're probably going to look at you like you're nuts and vote for the other person because that's not debate for them, right? So, but I told you it was fine, and so I'm accepting it. So that said, even though she doesn't really respond to the shell like you would expect her to, like you see people in camp do and whatnot, I think she does a pretty good job responding to it. She just she just says it in a way that you would say it in a normal argument, between like you and your teacher. You don't say it in like debate terms, like against subpoint C, voters, blah blah blah. You're just like, well, okay, let's talk about the reason that I'm doing this. So Israel and Palestine is like the focal point of the Middle East, right? Like what happens there affects what happens everywhere else. And there's nothing in the resolution that tells me that I can't specify these two countries. In fact, based on the very definition, like it says in these states, not in all these states of Israel and Palestine. So I'm fine with you doing that. I don't vote on theory at all. Kick theory out. You're fine specifying that. So when I do get into looking more at ways that I can vote in the round, neg, as well as you do with your case, like I really liked your case. I wrote this in the on the RFD that I liked your case. I thought it was well warranted, and I thought it logically connected well from the beginning to the end. That said, I don't think you left yourself enough time, or else you didn't. You need to work on word economy because you dropped so much of